Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Rhonda.
How do you make decisions together as a couple when it feels like you're butting heads and you've got two different viewpoints?
It's a good thing that we have two different viewpoints. Like, what was it? Steve Covey said, if we both think the same way, one of us may be
Right.
unnecessary.
This is a great quote from John Gottman. In an intimate, loving relationship, it just doesn't work for either of you to get things all your way, even if you're convinced that you're right. This approach would create such inequity and unfairness that the marriage would suffer. We need to have a good blend of he plus she equaling we.
And we see this in so many couples where he or she is overbearing, dominating the relationship at the expense of the other. It's not a we. Somebody becomes invisible or minimized because they're not really working toward finding unity in decision making. And so it can't be a matter of if you were single, you would do it this way because you're not single if you're
Right. We
married.
don't need to be acting like we're single.
Right.
We need to be used to going to the effort of finding a blend between our two viewpoints. It doesn't need to be, well, I got it my way or she got it her way, but we
Yeah.
need to get it our way.
When we do it and it's he or she and it's too often that way, especially if it's more consistently he or consistently she, it can feel like a dictator puppet or parent child sort of relationship.
Yeah. One of the first things that we need to make sure is taking place is that we're both willing to synergize, and that synergy is a blending of the two.
You know, we I've heard someone ask a question one time. Well, what do you do if he and she are trying to make a decision, but it's a yes or no type thing, and waiting automatically goes with the other? Well, we would present to you, would that idea even be on the table? Do you two even know each other? What if we're talking about living in Alabama or moving to California? Have we asked each other, what are you willing to do? I think sometimes spouses make decisions at the expense of the other when they're just yanking each other around. Well, this is what we're going to do. And they didn't first say, well, what's fair game for us as a
Yeah.
couple? What is a good blend of the two of us? Is moving to California even an option? Is the Southeast the option? Or is Alabama the
Yeah.
option?
That is a blending of the two. Next thing that we need to look at is what would a better idea look like to you? We need to be open to hearing the viewpoint of our spouse. Sometimes we can be so set on the way we see things that we're not even open to hearing the ideas that our spouse has.
And if we are making a decision and it just seems so limited, like there's no way there's a third alternative, there's no way there's something that's a blend of the two of us, it's yes or no. Maybe we're looking at the details. Maybe we've already drawn into this pinpoint idea that we shouldn't. And instead, we need to pull back a little bit for a moment and say, okay, what do we want to see this look like? And then if we can come up with something that's a blend, then we go back to our detail and we say, does this fit with we? Or is
Yeah.
it outside that box?
Yeah, and experimenting is a good thing to do to find out,
Right?
what would it look like? Well, let's just entertain that idea. What would that look like if we did that? And just kind of carry it out a little farther. We don't have to, drop the hammer, so to speak, and end a conversation about something. Let's just kind of imagine what would it look like if we did things that way that you're thinking.
Yeah, and to do that, we have to be free to just talk maybe wildly about some ideas without commitment. Just because we talk about it doesn't mean that we're going to agree and we're going to do it that way. We should be able to explore some different ideas freely and without the threat of, if I explore this idea with you, I'm stuck with it.
We need to make sure that we're making a decision as a couple with something that we're both happy with. We don't need to end
Right.
up and one of us is happy and the other one is, disgruntled because, I
Yeah.
don't really like that. We need to keep working at it until we come up with a good blend that we're both happy with.
We actually need to be concerned if we are coming up with decisions that are not where we're not in union about it. Why is there a breaking here in this decision? Is this decision going to pull us apart and whittle away at our union? Will it have the opposite impact that I would like instead of bringing us closer together? If we are consistently making decisions and the other person is not on board, we're going to have a harsh feel going on in the
And
relationship.
some resentment.
Yeah.
Because
that's not fair.
Because I don't feel heard.
Right. But in those types of decision-making situations, that's not a partnership.
Right.
It's not treating the spouses as if they're both equal partners in this union. One is being treated as lesser than, and that's not the idea that God intended.
Right. We need to make sure that we're developing and letting our spouse know that I want this win-win solution, not, I got it my way or you got it your way that time and now it's my turn. We can get into these kind of wars back and forth, as who's getting their way more than the other one, and that's detrimental to the relationship. We need to make sure that we're working together and we've got that win-win mentality.
Because the fact is, if one of us loses, we both lose as a couple. And we've got to see that. Dr. Greg Smalley laid out some steps to developing a win-win solution that we thought were good.
And that is, just like we said, verbalizing our desire first for a win-win solution.
Letting the other person know, I really want to come up with a decision we both like. I'm not wanting to squash you in this decision.
Right. And the next thing would be having a curiosity. I really want to know, what does a win for you look like?
Right. And so when somebody states a viewpoint, restate it, make a connection. I can see why that would be important to you. And the thing is, we have to be able to consider what the other person is saying and let them know, make them feel that it was important. Otherwise, it's going to have a feel of, well, I just slapped what you presented off the table. But instead, restate, connect with the feelings behind what they're saying.
And looking for God's direction in it. So are we seeking to please God in the decision that we're making? Are we putting Him first? Are we honoring Him?
And allow each person to present different solutions without criticizing them or putting them down or acting like, well, that was stupid. No, let's explore, let's think, and let's be free and be approachable without doing things that's going to silence one person.
And obviously with that idea of brainstorming is laying some things on the table that may just seem kind of outside the box, right? Outside of what you might typically normally think were possibilities, so that we can explore, well, what if we did it this way?
Maybe we need to be a little bit more adventuresome as a couple to explore different things, but we may also need to share why this is a problem for me to go in a certain direction. Do I need to push myself a little bit?
Right.
Am I holding back? Or is this a little bit all over the edge for us as a couple?
And so this is all about finding a solution that works great for both of you as a couple. That it's not just for one, but both of you are happy with what you come up with.
And so some scriptures that we have on that. Philippians 2:3-4, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others.
Yeah, and that's
huge for marriage.
It is, because I'm looking out for what interests you, what concerns you about this option that we're looking at.
And if you think about things like that, some of these scriptures having to do with the way we would have union in the church, how much more in the family and in the marriage?
Yeah, in Romans chapter 12, he says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, honor one another above yourselves.
And so we have to ask ourselves, do I have selfish ambition? Am I really out to get my way? Am I only looking at the way I see this, or am I really welcoming to the fact that God made one out of two, not out of one?
Yeah. We have to push ourselves to be open to
Yeah.
a different perspective because we obviously are kind of sold, right, on our own
Of
perspective.
course.
So we have to look to others. Next, let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 1. I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. And, you know, when we say this about that there be no divisions and that you agree, it doesn't mean that you lay aside the concerns or that feeling that you have that I think we need to look at this. You know,
Yeah.
you need to bring that up. But the thing is, it takes work to blend the different viewpoints, and we don't need to just give up and take, you know, maybe what feels like the easy way out, and well, we'll just do it your way.
Right. In Romans 12:18 it says, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men." We really should put out a lot of effort to cooperate and work together.
And then in Genesis chapter 11, this was at the Tower of Babel, it says, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan will be impossible for them. And this is what God was saying, looking at the unity that the people were having in building that tower, that nothing would be impossible to them when they were in unity.
You know, James 1:2, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." When we're challenged in finding union, we really have to exercise our faith to seek after the Lord, and to be sensitive to hear his voice. Lord, how do you see this? What do you see as a good answer for the two of us as one?
And then in Romans chapter 8, we know that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love him and that are called according to his purpose. In all of these things that we're looking at, it is to encourage you to find the blend between the opinion and the viewpoint that one of you has with the viewpoint that the other one has, and keep working at it until you find that common ground.